This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We continue our series in Tefilla. This series is sponsored by a good friend in Los Angeles, Rabbi Rose, Lili Nishmas, his brother, Tzvi ben Levi Yitzchak. So we're going to discuss an interesting inyan today. Some of the details of the brachas of refuah, because we make 2 brachas of refuah every day when we use the facility, which is a great refuah, because for a person to carry around their waste, whether their uric acid or their excrement, could be toxic for the body, and the ability to release that is a great refuah for a person. And we make the bracha Asher Yatzar Sa'adam B'chachma Baruch Ata Hashem Refaeinu Basar Mafli La'asois, and every day we say the bracha in Shemana Esrei. The 8th bracha of Shemana Esrei, we say Refaeinu. And the question is, why do we need these 2 different brachos? But let's see the Mishnah Berurah on the top of your sheet first. The Mishnah Berurah comments, the Mishnah Berurah says, if you did not make the blessing of Elokai Neshama ad achar shehispalo Shemana Esrei, if you didn't make Elokai Neshama until after we daven Shemana Esrei, einoi mevarich oid la'achar tefillah. You don't make it again after Shemana Esrei. In other words, let's say a person woke up in the morning and he forgot to say Elokai Neshama, but he already davened Shemana Esrei. So then after Shemana Esrei, you can no longer say Elokai Neshama. And the reason is, Shekivan Shekvar Amar Mechaye HaMesim. Once you already said the second bracha of Shemana Esrei, Baruch Ata Hashem Mechaye HaMesim, it's similar to Machzir Neshamas Lifgar HaMesim. So to speak, it covers that bracha. It's going to cover that bracha of Hamachzir Neshamas Lifgar HaMesim. In other words, the bracha Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Baruch Ata Hashem Mechaye HaMesim will cover Elokai Neshama. That is the opinion of the Pri Chadash. But with Shari Tshuva, Mefakvek Ma'od B'din Zeh. The Shari Tshuva questions this. The Shari Tshuva says, just because one said Mechaye HaMesim, that doesn't necessarily cover Elokai Neshama. Umasik, the conclusion of the Shari Tshuva is the Al Kapanim ve'Eisha Amar Baruch Berachas Mechaye HaMesim Haya B'daito Levarach Elokai Neshama Achar Tefilla Rashay Achar Kach Levarich. The Shari Tshuva says, you know what? If you have in mind when you say Mechaye HaMesim that you don't want to be Yotzei Elokai Neshama and you still want to be able to make that bracha after Shemana Esrei, you're allowed to look in the Shari Tshuva for the reason, and the Pri Megadim is mashma the same. In other words, we have a very big machlokes whether the second bracha of Shemana Esrei of Mechaye HaMesim could cover the bracha of Elokai Neshama. The Pri Chadash says it does cover it, and the Shari Tshuva questions that. And certainly if you have in mind that it shouldn't cover it, it doesn't. This is what is cited in the Mishnah Berurah and Siman Vav. The Mishnah Berurah and Siman Nun Beis of Katan Tes, he discusses the following. Look in 2. V'ayin b'Pri Chadash shekasav degam berchas Elokai Neshama lo yoymar achar tefillah. If you look in the Pri Chadash, he says that Elokai Neshama you don't say after davening shekvar Yatzar berchas Mechaye HaMesim. But look in the Pri Megadim that he writes that from the Ramah it's not mashma that way. And the Maimer Mordechai argues, and the Shari Tshuva says Mistama you're not Yotzei, and from the Bir Agra it's mashma you're not Yotzei. But L'chatchila, to be Yotzei L'kulei Alma, meaning if you already began davening Shemana Esrei and you forgot Elokai Neshama, have in mind in the bracha v'nemanata that you don't want to be Yotzei Elokai Neshama, and this way you'll be able to say Elokai Neshama. This way, according to everyone, v'az l'kulei alma yivarchena achar tefillah, because it's true brachos don't need kavana, but if you have negative kavana, then you won't be covered. In other words, we have a great dilemma. We have 2 brachos that are almost identical. We have Elokai Neshama and we have Mechaye HaMesim. And we have a shaila, if you forgot to say Elokai Neshama, could you say it after the Shemana Esrei? The Pri Chadash says you can't. Other Achronim say you can. And therefore what's recommended by the Mishnah Berurah is have in mind you don't want Mechaye HaMeisim to cover Elokai Neshama. Now, a similar question could be raised with the following. What if somebody went to the bathroom? Now, what if somebody goes to the bathroom in the middle of the davening? Let's say middle of the Birchas Kriya Shema. So the Mishnah Berurah says, in number 3, Hitel Mayim, if somebody had to urinate, Lo Yivarech Asher Yatzar. He should not make an Asher Yatzar, Rak Yital Yadav. He should wash his hands, Ula'achar Tefilla Yivarech, and make the Asher Yatzar after davening. So the question is, why? Why are you allowed to make the Asher Yatzar after davening? Why don't we say the same way Mechaye HaMeisim covers Elokai Neshama? So too, why don't we say that the same way Mechaye HaMeisim covers Elokai Neshama, so too the bracha of Refaeinu should cover Asher Yatzar. Meaning, just like Tchias HaMeisim is a bracha very similar to Elokai Neshama, and we say it would cover it, unless you have specific negative kavana, why don't we say that, let's say someone goes to the bathroom, if they didn't make an Asher Yatzar, which they're not able to during the Birchas Kriya Shema, why don't we say that when they say Refaeinu, that Refaeinu will cover the Asher Yatzar? But clearly we don't say that. Clearly the Mishnah Berurah paskins that if someone goes to the bathroom in the middle of the Birchas Kriya Shema, what they're going to do is they're going to just wash their hands, daven Shemona Esrei, and then say an Asher Yatzar after. Why don't we say the Refaeinu covers it? So this is a very interesting shaila. This is a question that Rav Chaim Berlin had discussed, and this is cited in the tshuvas of the Tzitz Eliezer, Eliezer Yehuda Waldenberg, one of the Gedolei HaPoskim of the last generation. This is in Shalosh Tshuvas Tzitz Eliezer, Chelik Yud Aleph Simin Daled. He says, Hagoyin Bal Nesivas HaMishpah B'derech Chaim Posek. The Nesivos in the Sefer Derech Chaim paskins, Im Hitel Mayim Bein HaProkim, that if somebody urinates between the various chapters of the Birchas Kriya Shema, Lo Yivarech Asher Yatzar, he should not make an Asher Yatzar, Rak Yital Yadav, he should wash his hands, Ula'achar Tefilla Yivarech Asher Yatzar, and after davening, he should make an Asher Yatzar. V'stamoi lifsoik kamaisai. And many achroinim have paskin like the Nesivos HaMishpat, namely the Miskaras HaShulchan and the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah and the Chayei Adam, that their opinion is the daitoi shaloi levarich Asher Yatzar afilu be'emsa psuka dezimra. The Chayei Adam even holds you don't make an Asher Yatzar by psuka dezimra. However, I saw, says it Tzitz Eliezer, v'haloim ra'isi b'sefer b'nei Levi. I saw in the Sefer b'nei Levi of Rabbi Yerucham Halevi, Simin Hey, Deshada Narga be'etzem hach dina. They threw an arrow in this din. Meaning they questioned this din. Why should you say I should be able to say Asher Yatzar after davening? The Bnei Levi says, because you already yotzei with Refaeinu. Based on the psak of the Pri Chadash, that if you didn't say Elokai Neshama before davening, you don't say it after davening. So if you don't say Asher Yatzar before davening, you shouldn't be able to say it, because you're yotzei l'chayr with Refaeinu, just like you're yotzei Elokai Neshama with Mechaye HaMeisim, you should be yotzei Asher Yatzar with Refaeinu. However, says the Tzitz Eliezer, he vehemently disagrees, and I believe he gives 3 reasons why he disagrees with this halacha. And while learning these 3 reasons, we're going to learn about the power of these 2 brachos, Asher Yatzar and Refaeinu, and how in fact they're very different from each other. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, La'achar ha'iyon, after analysis, Nir lafi ani daiti she'em bezeh b'chdei la'arer ha'halacha ha'mekubelas. that this is not enough to challenge the accepted halacha, that we don't find anyone challenging this Mishnah Brura and this Derech HaChaim, that you shouldn't be able to say Asher Yatzar after davening, unless a half hour passed, and there is a shaila whether after a half hour you could still make an Asher Yatzar. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, in my opinion, this is not a good analogy. The fact that Tchias HaMesim covers Eliekai Neshama is not a good analogy that Refaeinu should cover Asher Yatzar. Reishis Gam al Dino da Pri Chadash Gufei Kamu Alei Ayren. The first thing is, not everybody agrees with the Pri Chadash that you can't say Eliekai Neshama after davening. Look in the Maimer Mordechai. Look in the Sharei Tshuva. Look in the Mishnah Brura. Many Achronim say you could say Eliekai Neshama after davening. So even if you're going to say like the Pri Chadash that you shouldn't do it, but even in that case it's not so pashut. So let's leave the Pri Chadash's chidush to his case. Number two, one who looks in the Pri Chadash will see is that his halacha is based on the Yerushalmi, which says that l'chatchila, when you wake up from your sleep, you should say Mechaye HaMesim. Meaning like this. The Yerushalmi says, you don't even say Eliekai Neshama. You know what bracha you're supposed to say in the morning according to Yerushalmi? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Mechaye HaMesim. And that's what they apparently would say instead of Eliekai Neshama. So from there the Pri Chadash derives that the bracha Mechaye HaMesim is very similar to Machzor Neshamas, because really the bracha of Eliekai Neshama should have been Mechaye HaMesim. It's just when we don't do that anymore. Our custom is we have more of a flowery nusach. We say Eliekai Neshama shnasata bi tohiriyah, tavarasa, toyitzarta, tenafachta bi. But we see from the Yerushalmi that the principal core of that bracha is Mechaye HaMesim. So that's exactly what you're saying in the second bracha of Shemona Esrei. But in our situation, when we're dealing with Asher Yatzar and Refaeinu, we don't have any indication that they're the same bracha. So therefore, why should we apply it? Thirdly, the bracha of Eliekai Neshama and the bracha of Mechaye HaMesim are both mi berchos hashvach. Eliekai Neshama is a praise, and Baruch Atah Hashem is the second bracha of Shemona Esrei. We know the first three brachas of Shemona Esrei are praises. But when it comes to Asher Yatzar and Brachas Refaeinu, they're not similar. Asher Yatzar is a Brachas Hashvach. Refaeinu is not a Brachas Hashvach. Refaeinu is a Bakasha. Can you be Yotzei Asher Yatzar by saying Refaeinu? Asher Yatzar is a bracha of praise, and Refaeinu is a bracha of request. So therefore, since these brachas are fundamentally different, just because Tchias HaMesim will cover Eliekai Neshama, that's because they are both the same kind of bracha. But Asher Yatzar and Refaeinu are a different kind of bracha. Another argument, and this is very important. We're in Ois Daled now. V'oid ba shlishia, another idea. Harishayna birchas Asher Yatzar, harehi birchas hashvach al klalas yitziras hamin ha'anushi. The bracha of Asher Yatzar is a bracha of praise on the entirety and the general creation of mankind. Think about what we say in Asher Yatzar. Asher Yatzar es ha'adam. We say man. Which man? Man includes all the Chinese, all the people in Wuhan, all the Italians, all the Iranians, all the Americans. It includes all of mankind. Asher Yatzar es ha'adam b'chachma. And the end of the bracha is Roifei chol basar umafli lasais. But Refaeinu is referring to Klal Yisrael. Refaeinu speaks about Klal Yisrael alone. It begins Refaeinu, heal us. The chasima is Roifei choilei ama Yisrael. So therefore, how is it possible to say that you could be yotzei the berachas hashvach that includes a praise for all of mankind in a different bracha that is specifically referring to Klal? So in other words, these are two separate brachos. The bracha of Asher Yatzar is a blessing of thanking Hashem for the healing of mankind and the creation of mankind. And Refaeinu is a special bracha that the Rebbe Shem heals Yidden. Now, interesting, the Tzitz Eliezer quotes the psak of the Aruch HaShulchan, who questions that the Aruch HaShulchan wants to say that if you didn't say the bracha of Matir Asurim, when you say in Mechal Kal Chayim Bechesed, Mechayim Esim Racham Ram, Semech Lim B'Revchalom, Umatir Asurim, you're also Yotzei. You're Yotzei the bracha of Matir Asurim, and then maybe you can't make that bracha anymore. Says the Tzitz Eliezer, I don't understand how you could have that suffix. You're not saying any psichas habracha for Matir Asurim in the bracha Mechayim Esim, and you're not saying any chasima, you just say the words Matir Asurim. So the Tzitz Eliezer questions how you could be yotzei the bracha Matir Asurim just by saying the two words Matir Asurim in the second bracha of Shemona Esrei. Furthermore, the bottom paragraph, V'lo zu bilvad, elo gam zois that tchunasa shel hapsicha v'chen hachasima me'ein hapsicha shoinim hem legamri zamizah. The openings and closing of these two respective brachos are very different from each other. When we talk about Asher Yatzar, the psicha is b'chachma. We talk about the chachma of man's creation. Also, the chasima, we say mafli la'asos. But when we talk about Refaeinu, we're not talking about the wonder of creation, the wisdom of creation, the profundity of creation. We're asking God to heal us. We say Refaeinu, and then we say Roifei Chabasar. And we don't even mention the Chachma of Refuah and the Chachma of the Bria. So how could you be Yotzei Asher Yatzar by saying Refaeinu? Refaeinu is only for Yidden. Asher Yatzar is for all mankind. Refaeinu, we don't mention God's wisdom and His profundity and His miraculous ability. And then the Tzitz Eliezer sort of concludes by citing a Gemara in Avodah Zarah. And this is something that Reb Chaim Berlin quotes as showing the difference between Refaeinu and Asher Yatzar, and the difference between the Rebbe Shem, the way the Rebbe Shem heals Yidden and the way he heals the Ummah Yisraelim. We have a Gemara, this is on page 2, number 5. Amar le Zunin l'Rebbe Akiva. Zunin said to Rabbi Akiva, Libi v'libcha yodea d'avodas kacham lesbei meshasha. My heart and your heart know that Avodah Zarah is immaterial. Ay v'haka chazinon gavri da'azli kimitavri ba'asi kimitsamdi. But we know people start off before their Avodah Zarah, they're broken limbs, and when they come out of their Avodah Zarah, they're healed. It's like in the South. People, they declare their allegiance to the mamzer, and all of a sudden they have a refuah. So, but we know that Avodah Zarah is nothing, yet it seems to be have efficacy. My taima, why is that? Amar lo. So Rabbi Akiva said like this: Let me give you the following parable. La'adam ne'aman shahaya be'ir. There was a erstwhile person in the city. Everyone would deposit by him without witnesses. Uba adam echad v'hifkid loy ba'edim, and somebody came and gave it to him with edim. Pam echad shachach. One time, the person who would deposit with edim forgot. V'hifkid etzloy shloy ba'edim, and he gave a deposit without edim. Amar lo ishtai. So the wife said, let's deny it. Meaning he forgot to deposit by us with edim. Amar Allah. So the guard said, because this fool acted improperly and didn't deposit with Eidim, we should also lose our trust. Afkach, so to this. Afkach Yisurin. B'shasha meshagrin oisam ala adam. When God sends difficulty on a person, Mashbiyan oisan, God makes the Yisurim take an oath, Shalai telchu ela b'yom plani, that they're not going to leave until such and such a date. V'loi teitzu, and they won't go out, meaning they won't come until a certain date, and they won't leave only on a certain date. Uvesha plainis, and at a certain time. V'al plani, and through a certain person. V'al sam plani, and through a certain medication. Meaning every Yisurim is programmed and takes an oath. It will come at a certain day, and it won't leave until a certain day, and a certain time, and through a certain doctor, and through a certain medication. Kivan she gives manan latzeis. Now, when the time arrives for the Yisurim to leave, halach zel lebeis avodas kochavim. This guy, he goes to his house of idolatry. Amru Yisurin. So the Yisurin says to God, God, I don't want to leave. He's going to think it's the avodah zarah. Dinu shalai neitzrei. And God then turns to the Yisurim and says, just because this fool acted improperly, anu noved shvuasenu, you should abandon your oath. V'hainu da'amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Mai dechsiv v'chaloyim ra'im v'ne'emanim. Sicknesses are evil and faithful. They're evil in their mission, and they're faithful to their oath. They swore they would leave at a certain time, and just because somebody may mistakenly think that it's avodah zarah, they're still going to leave. Well, look in the final paragraph in number 6 from the Tzitz Eliezer. He says, as a conclusion, I'm going to mention what I saw a while ago, a wondrous biur from Hagon Rav Chaim Berlin in the Kovetz Drushim, in the 4th Chayveres, on the difference in the text that the Anshe Knesset Agdoila have formulated between Asher Yatzar and Refaeinu. Based on the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, that Yisurim are programmed to come at a certain time, leave at a certain time, and they don't go away until a person, and they don't go away until they are programmed to go away, but when they are programmed to go away, they will leave despite somebody mistakenly think that it's attributed to some avodah zarah. Well, says Tzitz Eliezer, we're now on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the 14th line. V'hinei kol ha'hanhaga hazois, this whole practice, shehinheg HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Shemai Liyos HaYisur Ne'emanim B'Shvu Asam, that the Rebbeinu Shalom has made the Yisurim faithful in their oath. Shalai Yetzu Ad Yom Plani, that they're not going to leave until a certain time. Kol Zehu Al Yidei Hanhagas HaTeva, this is all natural. Meaning Avada, Yisurim will not leave until they're naturally supposed to leave, and God make them take an oath that they won't leave until that time, not earlier, not later. But of course, someone who is Zoicha to have Hashgacha L'Mala Min HaTeva, we know the Rebbeinu Shalom will come and heal a person and remove the Yisurim even before they're supposed to leave. Someone who is Zoicha to be overseen by God Himself, B'hanhaga Nisis, in a miraculous way, L'Mala Min HaTeva. Allah Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about him HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, B'Tairasai, Im Shamaya Tishma L'Koil Hashem. If you will listen carefully to the voice of Hashem your God, V'hayashar be'inav taseh, v'azanta l'mitzvaysav, v'shamarta kol chukav, kol ha'machal asher samti b'mitzrayim, lo yasam alecha, ki ani Hashem roifecha. U'memela kiven sha'kadosh baruch hu ba'atzma yisrael shma'yeh roifeh. If God is the doctor, memela yirape av koydem azman, then you could be healed even before the time the Yisurim is supposed to leave. So these, says the Tzitz Eliezer, quoting Reb Chaim Berlin, this is the difference between the two brachos. When we say Asher Yatzar, we say Hashem heals all flesh. That's in the natural way. When does God heal? That the Yisurim will leave on the day that it swore to leave. V'hi b'yom sheshbias hayisurim latzeis. V'himo ne'amanim b'shvuasam. And the Yisurim will be faithful in their oath. Avo b'birchas Refaeinu. But when we say Refaeinu, Choismin, Roifei Choyle, Ama Yisrael. When we say Refaeinu, we're going to end off, Hashem heals His people Israel. V'hainu sha'kadosh baruch hu Roifei Oisam. God heals them ba'oit shehim adayim choylem. While they're still sick. Shelo higia oid zman hashvua latzeis. God could heal someone before it is time for the oath of the Yisurim to compel them to leave. Meaning the Yisurim is compelled to leave at a certain time naturally. But supernaturally, if Hashem comes in and uses His medical plan, so He will come and heal earlier. And therefore we say, in Refaeinu, we say, Kikel melech roifei Naaman v'rachamanata. Naaman, when you heal us, when you allow the Yisurim to leave, when the Shvua compels them to leave. Rachaman, we are merciful to make the Yisurim leave even before the Shvua. And this is similar to the Chasima of Roifei, Choyle, Amoy, Yisrael. Even if based on the Shvua, it's not time for it to leave yet, and a person should still be sick, Hashem will be Merachim. So far we've given many reasons why, even if a person forgot to make an Asher Yatzar, they could still say it after Shemana Esrei. First of all, the din of the Pri Chadash, that after Mechaye HaMesim, you cannot say Elokai Neshama is not unanimously held. Secondly, the reason for that din is because really Elokai Neshama principally is exactly the same as Tchias HaMesim. Thirdly, they're both Berchas HaShvach as opposed to Refaeinu, which is a Bakasha. Fourthly, Asher Yatzar is speaking about the healing of mankind in general. Adam b'chachma, kol basar. Refaeinu is Klal Yisrael. Furthermore, Asher Yatzar is talking about the wisdom and wonder of creation, while Refaeinu, we don't talk about that. And furthermore, Asher Yatzar is talking about the natural healing process, which is Yisurim take an oath that they will leave at a certain time, but that's for the Umay Sa'ilam. But for Klal Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shem could display extra Hashgacha Pratis, and if he does so, the Rebbeinu Shem could bring healing even quicker. Well, the final paragraph of the Tzitz Eliezer, he says, B'ha nachisna u'v'ha salikna. We began with this, and we'll ascend with this, that Refaeinu is a completely different bracha than the bracha of Asher Yatzar in its nature, in its opening, in its closing, and you're not Yotzar Asher Yatzar with Refaeinu. And Refaeinu is designated for Klal Yisrael, Am Karoivai, who are Mekayim the mitzvahs. After all, we know, amazingly, from the Gemara Megillah Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, why is Refaeinu the 8th bracha? So Rav Acha says because Mila, which was given on the 8th day, needs a refuah. Furthermore, the Torah says Refaeinu has 27 words, keneged the 27 psukim in the Mila. And the 27 words in the pasuk, Vayomer Shamaya Tishma Ani Hashem Reifecha. So here we see that the whole bracha of Refaeinu is centered and connected to Mila, is connected to Torah. So it's a special refuah. It's Roifei Choyle Amo Yisrael. There's a special refuah that the Rebbeinu Shem gives Klal Yisrael. It's a different refuah entirely than what the Umay Sa'ilam have. We could add that we say every day in the bracha of Yatzar are Lo'el Payel Gevurais Oisech Hadashes Ba Mochamois Zeret Tzedakos Natzmir Yeshuais Boirei Refuais. If you look, what number praises that? Let's take a look. We say Payel Gevura is 1, Oisech Hadash is 2, Baal Melchama is 3, Zeret is 4, Matzno Shosai Bar Refuah is 6, Noira Silas Adonai Neflois. So it's the 6th. According to some, it's the 8th. But be it as it may, from here we learn that the refuah that the Rebbeinu Shem gives Klal Yisrael is a entirely different refuah, is a fundamentally different refuah, and everyone should be zoicha to Yeshuais, refuais. We should be zoicha Shabbos, Melizuk,
All participants are muted.
Shabbos hi Melizuk,
Are unmuted.
or Rafua Kroiva Lavai. Oh wow, now you're back. And wishing everyone a great Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.